Welcome back, Furs, to day 2 of the 2017 FBA Draft. I'm Ryan Eastman, and joining me tonight in the booth is my partner in crime, Marcus Baylor, and also joining me tonight is Rodney Jansen. How you guys doing tonight?
Oh, sorry about that.
Bless your face? Question mark?
Yes, I am afraid I do have that problem lately. It does annoy Will Steinberg at the office, don't you know?
Okay, cool. Well, to answer your question, Eastman, I have been doing pretty all right myself. I am glad to be back on the commentary once again. It has been too long, way too long, and I'm just ready to get things started with this FBA draft after a crazy first round last night.
Yes, it was a very wild one, and I do not understand how half of it happened. But yes, I am subbing in for Will this time around, who is on the floor actually. I don't know if he's live tweeting this time around, but if he is, it will certainly be very interesting.
Are you
Anyway,
sure you didn't just get him sick so he couldn't be up here? I mean,
his immune system is better than mine. Let's leave it at that.
so both of you first time in the booth for this draft class. I asked this to the commentators yesterday, in fact, at the end. Who is your steal of the draft so far, and who is the player that has not yet been drafted that you're going to keep an eye on? Let's start with Marcus.
All right. So when it comes to the biggest steal of the draft, I think it's pretty much no surprise to me that the biggest steal would have to be the blessing that was offered by Lorraine. The fact of the matter is that you have a top 10 player, granted that she is top 10, basically getting kimmed was just beyond me insane. I mean, granted, yes, there are a lot of point guards in the FBA right now. It's a very tough position to really find a starting job for, but it's still a huge surprise considering that she has a pretty unique skill set.
Well,
Now,
also, you have to remember that we were projecting her to go much earlier in the draft than she actually did. I think I put her at about, I would say maybe the 13th, 14th pick, and then there she is 10 picks later. So yeah, I would have to agree with that assessment in my terms. I think Blessing is also the biggest steal of the draft. So
okay.
And Marcus, who do you have an eye on still that's left? We had four top 24 players not get picked up day one. Actually, that's a low amount. Normally, we have more slip to the second round.
Yeah, I mean, even considering the fact that all the craziness that happened last night, it still is a little bit of sanity when it comes to some of the picks that have some of the top 24 picks that usually falls out. And plus, they're all in the later ends anyway, so that's something that isn't really out of the ordinary. But as for a person that I'm looking my eye on, I'm kind of looking at my eyes on Sonoma. I'm hoping I'm not mispronouncing that, but Sonoma Blevins.
you can
Sure,
just
he is
call
a
him
very raw
Sonny.
player, but he is pretty athletic, and he can do some decent shooting on the mid range. So I'm pretty sure if the right team picks him up and really hone on his skills and improve some of the things around it, I think he'd be a good solid backup for somebody.
And shitting on over to you, Rodney. Who do you think? Who do you have an eye on still?
Well, right now I have eyes out for Thorin Tanner. Actually, he seems to be he's one of the many centers that have joined this draft, and I have a very strong feeling he might go in this round. There are lots of teams out there that do need their center depth, and they will need a little bit more of a defensive-minded center. So, in my mind, they will likely go for Thorin Tanner, who does have that defensive mind. Excuse me. Ugh. Okay, I thought I had a sneeze coming there. Thank God it was not that.
Let's see. Sorry, I'm keeping my mock draft up to date as I'm getting nice info from the
Oh.
floor as the GMs are talking. I know a couple of them are looking to trade actually right now. Hopefully, Bangor is done with the crazy
Yeah.
juice.
Let us hope they are finished, because
I
if we get them doing what they did yesterday again, I think I might have to go and provide Will a little bit more than coffee this time when he wakes up.
Yeah, I really don't think. I doubt that we're going to see any more craziness from Bangor because they've already done so much to change up their roster. But granted, it shouldn't be too much of a shock considering the fact that they have done this in the past. Granted, but for tonight, I'm sure that we're going to see a little bit of lay low, and even if there's going to be any kind of trades, none of them are going to be as huge considering this is the second round.
Yes.
A lot of the stock isn't going to be as, I wouldn't say as unique, but it's definitely going to be a little bit hard to find any gems that are worth trading for any kind of pieces that are
At this
significant.
point, at this point, most people are going for either bench or reserve depth, even in some cases. So that will definitely ring true. Although it would be very interesting to see where the remaining top 24 candidates will go.
Very much so. Only 7 minutes left before the first pick starts, or the first team is on the clock, and that will be Dakota. I believe followed by that will be Tennessee, who has picked up Albany's second pick in the second round.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be some interesting to see. I know with Dakota, they did basically get a little bit of a steal there with Jalen Rose falling a little bit to number 7. It's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do with this first pick because, like I said, there are definitely a lot of gems that can fall into. And as for Albany, not Albany, excuse me, Tennessee, excuse me about that. I'm not really, I'm not
Keep
entirely
track
sure
of
what
your
they will do,
stuff
but
better.
oh shush. But I'm pretty sure that Tennessee will come up with something. Like I said, the safest bet, I would have to assume that both of them will probably go for some of the people who were a part of the top 24 but just missed out on the first round. But we'll see where it goes.
Well, Albany just made an offer recently for Umechi. Um, I was expecting possibly with their first pick or second pick to have gone after a point guard, small forward, and now that they are no longer in the second round, I wonder if they might try trading back in if there's a point guard outside the top 24 that they might be interested in.
Well, I think the thing that all the point guard discussion about Albany forgets is that they do have Rene Lacoste there. So their priority may not be to get a point guard as much as it is to buffer their front court. And I considered Penichkula a minor steal in the previous round because of that. So I don't think point guards are a real priority for Albany at this moment because they seem to be structuring their priorities elsewhere. If they do get a point guard, it will be for depth, is my feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just have to keep my fat fingers from typing. Apparently, people are picking picking it up in the background. This is what happens when you don't switch over to fancy electrical keyboards. I use mechanical still.
Oh, I'm sure it's all right, Mr. Eastman. After all, I do kind of hit my own keyboard really hard, even with that. The people in the trumpeter tell me that I should form my own percussion section with it.
Well, I will make sure to mute myself whenever I start typing again. I'm definitely going to be handing it off to you two tonight. My voice, uh, not sure it's going to be able to handle another round of action after last night's craziness.
Oh, well, we will see
Well,
about that.
yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what GMs will come up with. But usually for the second round, it won't be as insane. Really, the only insaneness really happens after the draft. But we'll wait and see for that in the next few hours.
Yes, we will, especially once we start seeing who some of these people will be going to. I hear that there are a few free agents that are the big ones that are making their decision. Derek Kim among them, actually.
Well, that will definitely be interesting to see. I know a couple are sure to jump out. It's always that question of a payoff. Do you accept a contract early or try and wait it out to get more money at the risk of teams potentially filling spots? You may lose suitors very quickly as teams fill out their roster. So also always a challenge of building a team. Whether or not a player commits early could have a factor on other free agents.
Hmm. Well, I suppose we will see as we go down this second round. Um, I imagine many of them are waiting for this round to see what happens first.
True, definitely true, and see if any more picks and trades occur. We might see, who knows? It may not be Bangor tonight, but I'm sure there's a team waiting in the wings, rubbing their paws.
Oh, wouldn't that be
There's
something
always
to see?
one.
Mm-hmm. Preach it.
In fact, I think I see the deputy commissioner getting ready to head up on stage to give the welcome to all the draftees in the audience.
Mm. Yes, indeed. He's moving a bit fast, actually.
Hello, I am Raymond Seaver, and I would like to welcome everyone to the second round of the FBA Draft. As the Deputy Commissioner, I wish each prospective FBA player here tonight the best of luck, as another 24 of you will have your name called out tonight. Each team will have 3 minutes to make their selection. With that, we shall begin. The Dakota Bikers are on the clock, and the Tennessee Moonshiners are on deck.
All right, as you are already well aware, Dakota is now on the clock. So for them, the first pick that they actually decided to go with is Jalen Rose, which of course I said earlier, I consider is a little bit of a steal. But right now, I think the biggest thing is for them is to go for a point guard here.
Yes,
considering the fact that. No, go ahead.
That is my feeling too. Honestly, I am a little surprised they did not go for a point guard in the first round. They will need a starter in that position somewhere, and with Catherine DeMille gone, they are going to have a bit of a difficult time filling that spot. Personally, I feel like Jalen Rose's pick may be a detriment to the team, considering that they are trying to win Dylan Redfield back.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, you have to realize that one of the crazy trades that we've had yesterday was including the fact that they acquired Benjamin Derby as well. And with that in mind, it's going to be really interesting to see, because they did have a point guard in their laps. They did have the number 1 pick, but decided to trade back in order to able to get one of their to get a good free agent shot for Dylan Redfield for a little pander of who came in Benjamin Derby.
That you do bring up a compelling point. Then my money will likely go to point guard as well. They do have a bit of ground to cover on that part. So,
So who would you think they would be going here for this pick?
Well, if I had to hazard a guess, I would say maybe something like uh, maybe Annalise Rogers or something like that. They are going to go for. They don't have very many uh, guards on the cusp yet, so they will have to dig much deeper than that. And Annalise Rogers is very small, can probably get around people very quickly. So, but we shall see.
And we shall see, as well as we get to see the deputy commissioner coming up and ready to announce the first selection.
With the 25th pick in the FBA draft, the Dakota Bikers select Thorn Tanner, Zebra, from Great Lions University of Scotland, center. Tennessee Moonshiners, you are on the clock.
Interesting decision.
I
Interesting
need to
decision.
find my notes. What?
Well, Thor
What?
Tanner is definitely an interesting pick, and on the Cubs player here is going for a center position. While granted that since they did get rid of Cassidy for Derby, they still need some kind of quality depth on this team.
I suppose that is very true, and do not remember if they are going for Brian Delano Montgomery III. But if for whatever reason they do not, then Thorn Tanner would be a suitable replacement. So I can actually see this pick working out for them.
And considering the fact that with Derby is coming in, we do have even a couple of centers that might not return. Well, actually, yeah, only Brian Delano Montgomery. Mika Mishima, even though that, yeah, he was definitely a decent player coming in after his rookie year. It is good for a little safety bet just in case. So just to pretty much boost up his performances as well is good for competition. So I'm not really surprised there. But now to just shift gears here, we're going to get over with Tennessee as our next. So what do you see with Tennessee with what they got?
Tennessee. Well, they basically need to get much of their starting line back, but they do have a hole in the shooting guard position that may need to be filled. That has not been incredibly consistent, we shall say. So I would say he would likely go with either Sonoma Blevins or possibly Gary Elsinore, failing that. Although it will be very interesting if they do Elsinore, because that could impact their attempt to get Trice Mallock back.
Some good interesting points. As you said, they do need a good shooting guard, and I do believe that Sonoma might be the best choice for this pick. He is the best available, and it is conveniently a good fit for that spot. And with Mera Providence, he is pretty much an average, above average shooting guard. I don't think he is the best selection if you want to go with. So maybe getting someone who's young and who has proven to do well on the floor can be a good decision to go for here. So
yes.
I think that Sonoma will be decided here in Tennessee, and I will not be surprised.
In the meantime, I see the deputy commissioner walking forward. So.
With the 26th pick in the 2000 FBA draft, the Moonshiners select Sonoma Blevins, Pine Martin from Canis Lupus Central Community College. With that, the Tallahassee Typhoons are on the clock.
So that is essentially exactly as we predicted it.
Yep, I'm not really surprised here. As I said, this is a team that really is going to look for shooting guard depth, and they definitely have it here. Will it affect the decision of whether or not to bring Providence back? I really doubt it. As I said, this is the second round, even though this is early in it, and we do have some prize gems that can be picked in this around this time. I still think that they might be able to bring him back and also still have a good, decent
That
depth
is
here
my
for
feeling
Tennessee.
too, especially since Mr. Providence seems to get along very well with the rest of the squad. I imagine that will not be a problem. Anyway, let us shift gears to Tallahassee. And here, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to preemptively cringe because I know that someone is not going to be happy with this. So,
Um,
so what do you think Tallahassee will go for this round?
Well, honestly, I really do think that the best choice they can go for will have to be a point guard in this case. I would honestly suggest that they might have to go for Frank Wong. Even though that he is more of a shooting guard player, he does have a little bit of skill in the point guard position, and he does certainly have a little bit of the body for it. So I won't be surprised if, just for the depth purposes, that they will go point guard here.
Honestly, I'm surprised they did not go point guard in the first round, but we all know never to expect the expected from Tetrialt. And that is my feeling right now, though. So we will see. But yeah, um, it's interesting you should choose Frank Wang for it, though, because they already have plenty of shooting guard type players. So if they would pick up Frank Wang, how would that affect everything else around him?
That is true, but as I said before, around this time, usually there aren't really a lot of notable guards that will stand out for me. And I do think that Frank Wong, considering he is one of the better and is on the cusp as well, and has a little bit experience in the point guard position, I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to go for that route, because since he's the only one that's on the cusp that isn't purely shooting guard.
Yes. Well, I see the deputy commissioner returning, so soon.
With the 27th pick in the 2017 FBA Draft, the Tallahassee Typhoon select Clarity Emmers, Yapok guard out of Polydon Fluval University of Fort Smith. With that, the Biloxi Voodoo are on the clock.
All right. I wouldn't say
Well,
that's it's not that bad of a pick.
it is fairly similar to what you outlined. Those. So,
Yeah, even though that this person is not really very known for their passing, they can shoot pretty well and is a very fast player. The only thing that is very notable that could be a bit of an issue is the defense. That's definitely not one of their strong points. But I won't be but I think with Tetrio, considering that she is the coach that she is, that she'll definitely toughen them up.
I suppose we shall see. Anyway, let us move on to the Voodoo, shall we?
Yes, we shall. So, who do you think is considered their selection for this one?
Um, well, for me, I feel that Biloxi, what they really need right now is a little bit of bench depth, and because they do need to find quite a few pieces. I feel that they should probably go for some kind of swing or at least a forward. So my money is likely on perhaps Gary Elsinore. I say Elsinore because of all the draftees, he seems like a good fit for the direction that Biloxi is presently taking. We have a very rough player in Elsinore, and Biloxi has Craig Reinhardt, and they are attempting to woo a Derek Kim over there. So my feeling is it will be Elsinore.
Okay. I'll have to agree with you that forward is definitely the biggest need depth-wise. It's really the biggest, but I really feel like the Carlos Reyes could be a definite good choice for them. You know, he's purely a small forward, and he does really fit that need that a good bench to have as well. So I will not be surprised if they decide to go Carlos Reyes.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is also a fairly good point. But does Carlos really fit in with Biloxi's chemistry is the main issue. He seems a bit more of a reserved player from what I have heard. So,
I mean, if anything, I do have faith in Biloxi's coaching because, as they've seen in the past, they are very known for making the most out of nothing. And if they do have something, which I do think Carlos Reyes can be, I think that this could be a solid pick for them.
Mm-hmm. Now, yes, you do bring up a very excellent point. Excuse me. I need to grab a tissue over here. Excuse me.
Well, you really catching the cold, getting the cold out there.
It's a very frequent. I've never been able to explain just why that is. I just happen to have this issue, and it's been plaguing me ever since I came to the Trumpeters' offices. So.
All right. Well, as much as how long you get sanitizer. Here comes Deputy Commissioner now with the next pick.
Thank you.
With the 28th pick in the FBA draft, the Biloxi Voodoo select Heinrich Fischer, Roller Bear, 7'1", center forward. On the clock is the Plymouth Taproots.
All right, going with the big gun.
What is it with these teams drafting a different depth every time we ask for something else?
I mean, that's how the draft works, dude. I'm not. Even though the fact that they do have Craig Reinhardt and Trent Mosley under contract, it doesn't hurt to really get a little bit more of a safety for center because those two, it can't work with just those two. So getting another big guy can probably help solidify that. I'm not too mad about that pick.
I think that pick is actually very interesting in light of their attempt to grab Sterling benching, because how will that affect his decision then? I still am very much into school that he will go back to Montana, but if he does not, then and he decides to play with Derek Kim, then what will happen?
I mean, it's definitely will be an interesting decision between that, but hey, it's a big fur. It might not be to what Sterling would like, but I still think that just as a safety precaution, because remember, this is a second round, it's not going to be that big of a deal. I wouldn't be too surprised. But switching up to the Taproots, who honestly needs the position that we're talking about.
Yes, they do need a center.
That's an understatement.
Yes, Will and I, when we got to the hotel after the first round of the draft, we both looked at each other and shook our heads about Plymouth. They really should have drafted that center in the first round because they do need a starting caliber, and neither of us believe that Darius Cole is that starting caliber center. They also traded away the only person who could have been their starting center over to the Spirits. So this time Plymouth needs to draft a center.
Yeah, they do. They definitely do. It's going to be really interesting to see what they're going to do with this pick. And I wouldn't be too surprised if they decide not to go for it again, considering the fact that ever since Raul Kandane left, they have really struggled to really finding that piece. Because
They
you do,
absolutely have.
because in the last two drafts, they have drafted 3 centers, and all of them, especially with Eric Toivonen, all of them are looking to not return, and that could be a really huge issue for the Taproots, especially with the fact that they're trying to spend all this money somewhere on another on another spot, which doesn't really make
We will see
entirely
about that.
much sense to me. They could be in some issues.
Yes, I do see the deputy commissioner coming out.
All right.
With the 29th pick in the 2017 FBA Draft, the Plymouth Taproot select Jacobus van Oorschot, a Dutch hare out of Underwood College, forward. With that, the Lone Stars are on the clock.
I am starting to see why Will Steinberg rages about this in the office.
Well,
going on
like we, it's definitely a major question mark here for me, because as I said before, I can understand why they decided not to go for it and probably rely more on free agency to help out with the center position. But still, it's probably more important to bring some young guys in and really develop them. It's going to be
much is, but I do not think that the small forward position is a position that Plymouth particularly needs much depth in.
Yeah, you're right about that. It's still a confusion, any way you put it.
Yes,
but
because
now
on the one hand, you have Travis Buckner there, who is a very brilliant starter, and he is backed up by a potential MVP, well, former MVP, but I don't know. I suppose we can go on to Texas now. Sorry, I just wanted to.
Yeah, we can go on to Texas, which they really have put themselves in an interesting spot. Just recently, earlier in last night, we did discover that the Texas Lone Star decided to move on from Francois Martineau. And really try, I guess this is kind of an admitting saying that, okay, Marcus Knight is a shooting guard. After all these years, we'll finally admit it and actually try and go fix up that point guard position. Though yes. I do think that I like the idea that they're trying to do it. I haven't been a huge fan of the pursuit so far, but right now I will not be surprised if they decide to go point guard again.
Yes, that would not surprise me very much either. But I do feel that, I do suppose that I would consider Hudson Dielbach from the previous round to be a steal. So if they go for a point guard here, it will be for depth. That much I can tell you for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And considering with the fact of not having Francois Martineau there, do you think that they might actually have to go consider shooting guard as well? Because Ricardo Ortega is not going to be able to return next year.
I believe that I believe they might have actually offered to Ricardo Ortega. Let me check my sources on that. Yes, they actually have offered to Ricardo Ortega. So I do not think it is particularly pressing for them to consider the shooting guard depth at this point. So,
I mean, in all honesty, any guard depth is good depth.
Yes.
All things considered, but we'll see what's going to happen.
Yeah. Anyway, I see the deputy commissioner coming out once again, so we will see what their pick is.
With the 30th pick in the 2017 FBA Draft, the Texas Lone Stars select Vic Andrews, a 7'2" big fur out of Pensacola, Predatorial, and Mechanical. With that, the Montana Howlers are on the clock.
All right, interesting decision there.
Indeed.
As I think this is really more so a reserve pick, if anything, because they do have. Ooh, excuse me. They do have.
They do have Adinarius, and they do have Sanling. Is it?
Yeah,
That
I believe it's Sunling. So getting another big fur isn't really that big of a surprise.
yes.
And also with Chris Bracey, most is off of contract, and I don't really assume that they're not going to bring him back considering his age. He might consider retirement. Who knows?
Yes, they also may want a little extra forward depth as well for locks. If they decide to play him at the forward slot, I imagine he's next line of defense before Sackford. We shall see what happens with that. So anyway, let us move on to, I believe the next pick is Montana.
Yeah, Montana is. Yep, Montana's going to be a very interesting situation because I know right now their biggest need is to bring Sterling back. Now, do I think that they should go for a center position? I think there's a good possibility. There might be a little bit of a maybe because this is the second round, and really you want to find someone that could be a good, solid backup. Westcott Yobia, even though he is a really fantastic big fur, he is getting up there in age, and also with the fact that Brex Trenner is up there in age as well. So probably getting some kind of big fur would be a good choice to have.
Well, yes, but at the same time, you do forget that they did draft Freddie Varnaghi in the first round, so they may already have one step ahead of you there. My feeling is they may attempt to go for a little bit of potentially forward or even point guard depth. It depends. I believe my sources say they have offered to Christian Ashbury. But so really, this could be anyone's game. But I do not think there will be much of a need for big fur depth at this point.
For me, I really do think that big fur depth might be a consideration because outside of Sterling Bankston, Brax Tenner, Westcott Yobia, and of course Freddie, you still need probably, I would say, at least one more big fur to really say, okay, I can feel satisfied with it, because there's a chance that you might have two of your big guys injured, and then what are you going to do for that fourth one? Try and throw a person who's more focused on the small forward position into a power forward? I don't think it would work very well.
Yeah, you do bring up a fair point. Anyway, I do look out and I do see the again, so.
With the 31st pick, the Montana Howlers select Francis Laurent, Black Rat, out of University of Eastern Ontario. With that, the Hawaii Kahunas are on the clock.
Exactly as I thought.
Okay.
Yes, because I believe that Ren Inoue could use a little bit of backup. And even if they do offer to Christian Ashbury, again, it's like you said, for the big fur depth. In their case, their guards have been more of a problem the previous season than their big depth has. So this pick makes quite a bit of sense to me.
Okay, I mean, I agree with you there. Like you said with Christian Ashbury, and plus with the considering of the fact that he is probably more well known for shooting threes than anything else. It could be good for somebody to be as good as a passer as well. So it's good to have some kind of variety there. So I will give you that. Anyway, for the next pick, we can go look into Hawaii.
Hawaii will need quite a few things. For my money, I think they will draft a point guard here. Given that they picked up Hokulani in the first round, I imagine that they will not need too much more depth for either Zach Tate or Scooty Barrett. And Teo Masalia has been getting up there in age, so that would be the next logical choice for them, in my estimation.
I wouldn't put it past you on that one, as you said. Really, all of the front core depth is definitely good for Hawaii so far. Even though they might have a couple of, if I remember correctly, if I checked, they some of their big furs are leaving, but I will think that that the guard position might make a little bit more sense. Like I probably wouldn't be surprised if they go shooting guard here.
Shooting guard, really?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you say that?
Well, considering that, if I remember correctly, Sophia Kikian is already a point guard, and I'm pretty sure she was brought in to be the backup point guard to Tia Masalia. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually does, get injured from here. I think Sophia is able to step up to the plate and be able to come in for her. While for Julian Cross Corelli, I don't really see anybody on the team that really kind of goes out and we trust that they'll do a good job. I mean, Alan Sharp is there, but he isn't really as good as he was in the past few years. So I won't be surprised if they decide to go shooting guard.
You do bring up a very compelling point. Do you believe who do you believe would be the best person to fill that spot? Would it be like a combo guard, or who exactly would you have in mind for that?
I probably considered Frank Wong, as I mentioned earlier. As I said, he is more known to play for the shooting guard position. I think that'd be a perfect fit for him. And he does know a little bit of point guard play. So I think that might be the best pick for them for Frank Wong.
Yeah, that does make sense to me. So I suppose we'll see what happens. So I know that that you have been very busy lately. Have you finally started your own?
Yep. Yeah, the commissioner is ready to go.
Yes, I see him there.
With the 32nd pick in the 2017 FBA Draft, the Hawaii Kahunas select Charles Dauphré, a red kangaroo out of East Coast University. The Lorraine Firestorm are now on the clock.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Interesting indeed.
So, what do you make of this then?
I'm not entirely sure, really. Like I said, with any kind of depth is good depth, considering. I'm sure he can be a pretty solid player for this team.
Yeah, and he does seem to lean more towards the center side of things. I imagine this might be, I suppose this makes sense. They have offered to Antonio Garza, but at best he is reserve fodder. So Charles Dauphré going here does not surprise me nearly as much as I suppose it should. So yes, I suppose that settles that. Anyway, next on the clock is the Lorraine Firestorm.
Yep. With Lorraine just having 2 picks in the draft, they did, with a little bit of a surprise, they did decide to go for a center that's not even in the top 24, that's more on the cusp, and also having to get a blessing in the very last minute of the draft. So I wouldn't be so for this one. I probably wouldn't be surprised if they decide to go swing for here. Yes, they do have to worry about bringing some of their guys back who are within the summer position, like Edwin Grega. But I wouldn't be surprised if they just be a little bit safe here and just go for a small forward position.
My feeling is that the small forward is potentially their safest position at this juncture. We will have to see about that. So, but I do believe that you do have a good point there. The other thing they could potentially go for is a little bit of maybe a little more Bigford depth. I know that they drafted Araceli Sanchez in the first round as well, but their front court was pretty ailing throughout the previous season. So I suppose they are thinking that a little more depth could not hurt at this point.
I wouldn't put it past them. They decide to go big here, but for me, I do think that small forward could be the better choice. And I actually see the deputy commissioner coming over right now.
So we will find out.
With the 33rd pick in the 2017 FBA Draft, the Lorraine Firestorm select Thor Lind, Polar Bear, forward. With that, the Baltimore Spirits are on the clock.
I'm not too surprised about this pick. This pick was definitely a good one for them. As I said, they need some kind of small forward depth. Though the fact that they did pick an on-the-cusp player at the center position wasn't really the choice that I would go with if I were them. But
yes,
still, it's a need. They filled it. I feel like the small forward was definitely a good choice.
Yes. Although it does puzzle me that they did not top 20, because we still have one swing for and one small forward still on the board there. So that surprises me greatly, to be quite honest.
Mm-hmm. And now we kind of get into the Baltimore Spirits, who, in my own opinion, I feel like what they really need to focus on is trying to see if they can find a good point guard that knows how to pass well.
I apologize for
Bless
that.
you.
Let me go to the bathroom really fast. I may need to deal with something. My apologies for all of you listening out there.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Let me just get the hand sanitizer out and clean up where he was sitting while we wait for this next pick to come in.
To drain. It might be good to drain that now. It's been.
I mean, I'm just
surprised he held that long.
I'm just gonna unscrew this cap and pour this alcohol all over his seat just to sanitize it. Yeah. Baltimore on the clock. Couple choices I could see coming in. I would say they might consider going after a guard just because Vic is getting a little old. I mean, he's not the same Fox he was when he won MVP for the championship. So.
And also with the fact that Joey Cox is up there in age too, and he's the backup point guard. So that is a huge issue if you're considering the Baltimore. So in my opinion, they do need to find someone who can fill that position, learn on the way up to score, but already have a good idea of passing, because neither of them knows how to really pass very well from what I've seen the past few years.
Well, Joey has always been a very me first kind of point guard. I don't even know if he knows how to pass still. And Voss, with all of his dippings, I don't even know how he can still grip the ball. Speaking of which, I think I see the deputy commissioner coming up on stage.
All right.
With the 34th pick in the 2017 FBA Draft, the Baltimore Spirits select Lucy Cusland, a house cat out of Brown Dog University. With that, the San Jose Thrust are on the clock.
All right. Well, that's definitely a pretty decent pick. It seems to me that we are good to bring someone else in for a little bit, joining us again with via satellite, Andy Peltz from KWEF Sacramento. How you doing, man?
Hey, thank you so much for bringing me in. I'm glad to be back. It's a beautiful day here in Sacramento.
Yeah, that's good. So how do you consider the picks that have been made recently? Do you see some ups? Do you see some downs?
Well, definitely the first round was the round of big furs. That's the general consensus with those myself and my colleagues. We still have two players from the top 24 that have not yet been picked. I'm going to be interested to see if they actually do get picked up at some point here. I know that we've got San Jose, we've got Las Vegas, Winnipeg, and Bangor is coming up again. Bangor for days, you know.
Yeah, they've definitely been shaking things up recently. But let's focus more so on the thrust. What do you think their decision is going to be with this pick?
Well, I made a prediction in the first round, and I don't believe I was correct. So I don't hold any faith in this decision here. But I do believe that one of the remaining guards is going to go. Gary Elsinore might be picked up early. I don't know if San Jose necessarily could get go for them just because they've got a lot on their plate already. Alessandro Serra is still hanging around. But Gary Elsinore also on the list. The cusp really is Jordan Marks and Frank Wang. Looking at their combine stats, they weren't too shabby in the statistics.
Okay. I think that's some pretty good, solid choices. But for me, I really think that I might have to focus on forward just in case, because even though the fact that Jonathan Lawyer is a huge piece, I'm not sure of whether or not he will stay or go. He has been very quiet lately, so
he has been
it's
very
a big
quiet.
question mark.
You know,
Usually,
with some of these free agents, they tend to go on vacation a lot during the free agency.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I won't be surprised if they go for a small forward for them, especially this late in the game. We're in the middle of the second round. It shouldn't really affect anything, to be honest with you, on the second day.
Right. The majority of the big names on the list have already been claimed. So we're probably not going to see any stars emerge from today, but you know, who knows?
Yeah. If anything, I wouldn't be surprised if they go for Carlos Reyes. And here we are having the commissioner come on up and announcing this pick.
With the 35th pick in the 2017 FBA Draft, the San Jose Thrust select Maha Al-Sarari, an Arabian Oryx swing fur. With that, the Vegas Wildcards are on the clock.
Okay.
And with that, I was almost on the right track.
Yeah. I think that it's not a bad choice. Like I said, they did
Right.
need to go for a forward type player, and Maha'al is definitely it. But I wouldn't. I'm a little bit surprised that they just didn't decide to go for Carlos Reyes or Gary Elsinore here, considering the fact that these two they are pretty much the better of the swing first, and they still are on the clock. Well, they're still on the board.
Right.
So it's a bit of a surprise, but at the same time, they did feel a possible need there just in case.
Right. Yeah. This player in particular, I didn't pay attention to them a lot during the combine, so I can't really say much to their credit or to their effect, but some of the majority of this list definitely deserves to be in the FBA. Let's not make no dice about that.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, let's try and move on into the Las Vegas wild cards, which, in all honesty, they may need to look into trying to get a point guard. There's no doubt about it, considering the retirement of Lee Hofuk.
Right.
So any guard position will probably do, because we're not sure what Misha Maxwell is going to do either. So maybe being a little bit safe wouldn't hurt them too much, especially with the fact that a majority of their players this year are in free agency.
Right, absolutely. I saw on the social media that Misha Maxwell was taking a look at her contracts and considering very carefully. But who knows where Misha will end up. Taking a look at what we've got left as far as point guards are concerned. Well, let's see. In the first round, Las Vegas picked up Nagoy, which is a forward. So let's take a look at the guards that we have left. We've got Erica Smith. I've got Annalise Rogers down the list. On the cusp, though, Jordan Marks and Frank Wang still right there.
Yeah. If anything, if they decide to not go in for either of the two top players remaining, or even the on the cusp players, I think Analyst Rogers is definitely a choice that I would pretty much pick. He's just a pure point guard, has the body for it, and can pass very well. I wouldn't be surprised to go for that there, because that is the best point guard position.
Oh, there you go. Now, of course, they could go with the first round fad and go for a center. We have we've got Gage Williams still there, Pierre Caro, Zacharias Ekholm. Here I go butchering names. But today is Butcher Everybody's Name Day.
This is the draft. We're known for this.
Right. Now, assuming that they blow both of those expectations out of the water, Smolov, Valery Smolov, and let's see, Todd Stewart, Kiva Lovewell. Those are names that I'm going to expect go during this round.
Okay.
At least one of them. Hey, if it doesn't happen, then I'm out $10.
I mean, I'm not a betting bear, so you can keep the money whether or not you're right.
Right. And just a little betting pool amongst the radio staff here. Don't mind me.
Okay. Yeah, it happens. I mean, it's always fun to bet with the guys, but
Right.
you do bring up a good point about the center position. Literally, the only center that they really have, well, technically two, if we're counting Big Furs in general, is Lee Barraquin and Fenris Briley, and so it's going to be an interesting choice that they decided. But here comes the deputy commissioner with the next pick.
With the 36th pick in the 2017 FBA Draft, the Las Vegas Wildcards select Jordan Marks, Wolf out of UFLA guard. With that, the Winnipeg Voyagers are back on the clock.
All right. With Jordan Marks, that fulfills your. You were saying that they were going to look for someone to help out the guard absence in their roster.
What
Yep.
did I miss? What did I miss?
Nothing much. Just LVG picking Jordan Marks for their next pick, which isn't that big of a surprise. They needed some kind of guard depth, any kind of guard depth, really, because both of their starting guard positions are kind of vacant at the moment until we get to the free agency. But hey, now we know.
Indeed. Sorry about that. I thought it was a little more serious, but I'm feeling much better now. So
okay.
we
So
can
you
bring
sure
the
your nose is
conversation
okay?
to. My nose is fine, but thank you for asking. I believe now Winnipeg is on the clock.
Yes, Winnipeg is definitely on the clock. So, for the last round, Winnipeg decided to go for O'Hara, which is a pretty decent pick, in my opinion. But who do you think, guys, is going to be their next selection?
Andy, do you want to? Because I did hear your voice as I entered.
Yes, yeah, I'm still here. I didn't want to intrude upon your grand entrance. I've got the roster up here for Winnipeg. Now let's see. You said that O'Hara was the last round pick for the Voyagers. O'Hara, looking at my list, was
she's a point guard, if I remember
point
correctly.
guard. Right? Yeah, exactly. So planning for free agency moves. It sounds like I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they go for another guard, but taking a look at the roster, they also could get some more backup big furs.
They do need quite a few more backup. I'm more surprised that they did not draft their big furs from the first round. Kevin Malka is a very good player in his own right, but you have to want, and Xavier Safran is good, but not great. And I imagine between the two of them, they will need plenty of good depth.
I would have to agree. I think Bigford might be the best choice here, considering the fact that Xavier Safran, he is a decent player, and Kevin Malka, as we already know, he's one of the best Bigfords in the league right now. But with Tanner Molden, who I believe is still under contract for the next few years, he's okay. He's average, but might not be one of the first people you will want to decide to choose for when it comes to a backup big for in any sense of the mind. So
Right.
I do think that going for a big for would be the smartest choice if I were them. Mainly,
if now going based on draft combine test results, Gage Williams, which I believe is a center. Yes, he is a center. In the strength tests, he was in the top 5, tied with Sanchez, Andrews, and actually just Sanchez and Andrews. So if they're looking for like a brick wall to draft to their team, Gage wouldn't be a bad start.
yeah, and I think it could be a good fit for them too, considering the fact that Kevin Malka is really more so known for a more defensive post big fur. So I think that teaming him up with Gage Williams would be a perfect duo between the two.
Absolutely. from the feed that I have here in Sacramento, it looks like your deputy commissioner is on his way.
He is coming.
There
Here,
he is.
let's tune in.
With the 37th pick in the FBA draft, the Winnipeg Voyagers select Gage Williams, a shark from the Florida Everglade center. With that, the Bangor Tides are on the clock.
Exactly on the money.
Well, what
Once
can we
again.
say? Big,
Hey.
a big fur that is much needed.
Hey, we had to be at least right with one of our guesses here.
Exactly. So
I mean, we got them all right on one point. We did get one person mark earlier in this round, but hey, it's good on the W mark for us. But anyways, we are now going to get into the next pick, which I believe is Bangor.
that is indeed from Bangor. Watch
So-
them trade it away again for an interesting trade. Let's say that.
Yeah, well, considering the fact that they have been very, very active in the trade talks with many teams, of course, with recently the biggest one right now, Arizona, and of course with Dakota, and very earlier in the offseason, Santa Ana. I think that Bangor might be tuckered out when it comes to trading, but considering the fact of what they have brought in with Leon Dalmont in the first pick overall, I won't be surprised if they decide to go for small forward. Of course, Randolph is there. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he decided to stick with Bangor, but I wouldn't hurt for them to get a little bit safety, to get a third, possibly a swing for in, to help like fill in a little bit of gap with the guard position as well about the trade.
Swing for
Right,
depth
absolutely.
does seem the most logical to too, because they did give up Blanc Mange for their Lance Wildfire. So they will need to fill that spot somehow. I do not believe they will be able to draft a starter at this point, but they will be able to grab something. My feeling is that we may see either Carlos Reyes or Gary Elsinore. And of those two, my stronger feeling will be towards Elsinore. Likely
Right.
because of Kidane there, and you know how he is.
Right. The fact of the matter is, Bangor, I believe, is going to bank on the fact that they can stave off other teams with that flamethrower of theirs,
They've been using that flamethrower.
and keep Randy on their team. But if for some reason that doesn't happen, I do think that they need to get someone to fill that role or a backup role if they can.
Yep. Well, it looks like the deputy commissioner is ready to go, and we're going to tune in and see what he has to say.
With the 38th pick in the FBA draft, the Bangor Tide select Gary Elsinore, a crown lamer from Pacific Metro College, Swingfur. With that, the Pittsburgh Keystones are on the clock, and the Seattle Summit are on deck.
Oh, did we get it right twice in a row? What universe is this?
Insane. Oh my goodness.
What
Quick,
universe
go-
is this?
Run out and buy a lottery ticket.
I believe The Office 20. That is all I will say. And Will
You guys
owes
in
me
your
a bag of
betting,
pop.
my goodness.
Well, you should know this is a very common thing with the trumpeter. I know that Will Steinberg also owes me a bag of popcorn now, so I will munch on that very happily.
It also doesn't help that Reno, Nevada is just over the mountains.
Anyway,
yeah, you're not wrong there.
Let us turn to Pittsburgh, shall we?
Yes, we will. Of course, in the last round, the Pittsburgh Keystones, if I remember correctly, went with Margot Warrior for their pick.
You'd be correct.
So I wouldn't be too surprised if they go for another Big Fur again. only considering the fact that Lance Freewell is in free agency. He is up there. Dias Aurelius is also in free agency, and he's retired, isn't he? Never mind.
Yes, he has retired, and Will
yeah,
would say,
my
"Thank
mistake."
goodness for that.
But yeah, with Dias Aurelius, he's retired. So with all that considering, they do need to consider more point guard depth, because the only thing that they really have right now is Christian Hanks that is signed under contract, and that's going to be their biggest issue right now. They'll probably go big for here again as well.
That is my firm as well. And they do still have quite a few options. I believe they have Andres Liso and Yu Huali to that effect, and they also have a bunch of people in pure positions they can go after, like Pierre Caro or Zacharias Elcom, for instance. Personally, I think Zacharias Elcom might go. I've heard that he might be the closest fit for Pittsburgh's chemistry that they are building at present. So
Now, it looks like the deputy commissioner is walking. After the pick is made, I do want to go through a couple of draft people in the back of the room. But here's the commissioner, deputy commissioner.
With the 39th pick in the FBA draft, the Pittsburgh Keystone select Carlos Reyes, a hooded skunk forward out of the Great Lakes Mammalia. With that, the Seattle Summit are on the clock.
All right. Interesting choice.
Okay.
With that, we have the last top 24 ranked player picked up by the teams.
Yep.
Why here, though? It seems like a very... Although, actually, looking at the roster, I suppose it does make sense. They do need a little bit of other depth as well as starting big first.
Right.
And considering the fact that he is the top of the board right now at the time, it would make sense considering that he's dropped all the way to 39. Well, 38. Yeah, 39. My bad. So I think that was a good choice for them. The good news is the fact that we finally have all the 24. If I remember correctly, we had a similar situation happen a couple of years back. I forgot who the player was, but I know that he was a monkey. But it's good to know that now that all the top 24 is picked, we can now get into more of the on the cusp players. Anywho,
of which there are only 2 left.
Seattle. Yeah, there's only 2 left. But let's go ahead and get on to Seattle here. What do you think they need to do?
Well, really, this could be anybody's game. I feel they may go for a little bit of forward depth. They have made a bid on Nico McNamara, and I'm fairly certain that he may be starting for them. And they already have Evan the Woodpecker. I am blanking on his name right now. Marshall. Thank you. Yes. So they may go for reserve depth, particularly to cover for some of the less stellar reserve depth that the team has had more recently.
Okay. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they do decide to go for a third string player. I won't be too surprised if they decide to go for another point guard again.
Right.
Because I think at this point it is anyone's. Anything could be good for them right now.
Yeah. Taking a look at the combine results, I wanted to bring up a guard who is way back in the pack, but did have some good shooting results. Regan Sutherland is a guard. that is way in the back. But hey, scored a 82 on the shooting test, good for an 11th position, along with Annalise Rogers and Charles Dofrey.
Yeah, if they do decide to go for a little bit of more offensive move, because really a lot of their offense, even though the fact with Nika McNamara last year, all of the offense has been really via the front court with Jake Turner and Danny Kubianic, which is not a huge surprise because, polar bears, it's what we do. But yeah, I think that it could be good to get some more depth around the perimeter. And if they do decide to go point guard or maybe perhaps shooting guard, because Margaret Walters, she's up there a little bit in age, and Kenny DeMarcus, even though he can be a good piece at time, he can be a tad bit inconsistent. So I think it could be any kind of guard would be good here.
Yes,
I will agree with you on that one.
Yeah, that is indeed a fairly good point.
Let's take a look at forwards, just in case they decide they want to fill out their front court some more.
Well, they also do, if we're thinking swing depth, which would be, they still have Amy Liza on the board. She would probably be their best option if they opt for a more guard-leaning swing for. They also have, I believe, Kiva Lovewell on the board as well.
Well, we're about to find out here as we get to see the deputy commissioner walking up the ramp.
With the 40th pick in the FBA Draft, the Seattle Summit select Chris Johnson, a turkey vulture out of the Avian University of Hamilton, a 7'4" center. With that, the Huntsville Mares are on the clock.
And we were completely wrong.
Seattle just loved their big furs. They're just so big.
They do. What strikes me as very interesting is the fact that he is a pure center. They already have 3 centers on the team, plus Natalie Bellamont, who is a center-leaning big fur, and then also Jake Turner, who is supposed to be center-leaning, but he has been playing power forward this time. What are they planning? Are they not planning on bringing Bobby Baylor back? I mean, you must have a lot of opinions on this, given this is your brother we're talking about here.
Well, I'm not going to really get into my brother just yet. I think it might be good. And considering the fact that he is up there in age, and I love him to death, but, even with the fact that he is on the decline, he didn't really have a very stellar season with Seattle last year. I will admit to that. So I wouldn't be too surprised if they decide to move on from the Big Bear. And we'll just see what happens. But I think this might be probably a good choice if they decide to not go for that. And even though with Bobby Baylor, he is more of a power forward than a center anyways, I still think that it might be a pretty good choice for them.
Indeed.
Anyways.
So shall we turn to Huntsville now?
Yes,
we shall turn to Huntsville. All right. Taking a look at what they've got going and what they need. It's another patchwork from what I can see.
Yeah, for the most part, Huntsville kind of really does have their starting 5 pretty much set. I mean, of course, with the 2 guard lovebirds starting, I wouldn't really see them anything changing from that team. So, it's not coming to a surprise for anybody. But I won't be too shocked if they decide to go small forward here.
Neither will I.
Considering the fact that Jim McCormick is, even though he is more of a swing fur, he's a little bit up there in age.
He is getting old. So yeah, it would not surprise me if for one of the remaining small, if only so they can get a potential successor in line. I feel they could have done that in the first round. Oh wait, they did do that in the first round.
They
with
did,
Russian
yes.
Kimura. Yes. My apologies. I lost track of my notes for a second there.
No worries.
But yes, small forward would make the most sense to me.
Yeah.
Now they could work on their front court as well with a power forward or a center, because from what it looks like, they're definitely going to be good on guards, at least for the next season.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think right now the biggest if they do decide to go big for, probably going to be more lenient for the power forward position. I'm not entirely sure right now if Harrison York will return with the Mayors. I might have to check and see if he was actually offered from
He has
sources.
been off. He has been offered from Hunt. He has also been offered from Las Vegas. Oddly enough.
Interesting, but not from Huntsville themselves. So they might be seeing him moving on to another team, and I think that it could be in their best interest to see if they can fill in that spot if necessary, if they decide to go for a Big Fur.
I suppose we shall see about that.
Right. I have it on word that Harrison York is getting contract offers from other teams like Arizona.
Yeah, I see. Well, anyway, it looks like the deputy coming in, so we will see what they go for.
With the 41st pick in the FBA draft, the Huntsville Mayors select Natasha Roes, a Port Jackson Shark out of Farrington University. With that, the Santa Ana Spectrums are on the clock.
Well, we did say forward.
Yeah,
And forward we got.
yeah, I'm not too surprised for that selection. But anyway, on to the Spectrums. What do you think they were able to do here?
The Spectrums, I think, may want to think about drafting a little bit of forward depth. I'm thinking it is. It's one of their. They do have Legion Sung there, but they do need a little bit more depth in that area. They still do need a little bit of guard depth now that they've given away Scott Parsons, but
Yes, that's right. Scott Parsons went to the Voodoo, I believe, right?
yes, he did.
So definitely need to find someone to fill that gap. Their guards, I don't think they're going to need any more backup guards, but I could be wrong.
We will see. And they do not have too many forwards left on the thing. They have people like Jamba Kabea or even Valerie Smolov, although that would be very interesting with the team's current composition the way it is.
Would you care to expand on that idea there?
He may wreck the team chemistry. That is what I mean there.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard some not so savory stories about him, but who
Oh,
knows?
okay. You're talking his attitude or his character,
His attitude, yes.
his attitude.
Yes.
Okay.
But they do still have others. They have Mustafa Sokolov still on the board. They have potentially Gloria McFang. So they have that to pick from. And well, who do you think they might go for?
Taking a look at the options that they've got, they might look for another to go back to the strong front court, grab maybe a big from further down the roster. and try to groom them up. Looking at Huai or Huali,
Huali, I think it is.
Huali. There's Kochi. There is Kwachi Ishikawa,
Koichi, I think it is.
Koichi.
You are doing a very fine job of names, sir. Do you have a master's degree in it?
I have a master's degree in failing at pronouncing things. Yes, sir. I have
And
it
we love you
framed up
for
on
it.
my wall, in fact.
Indeed, indeed.
Well, it looks
I
like we
see
won't have
that-
to speculate very much longer because the deputy commissioner is on his way.
With the 42nd pick in the FBA draft, the Santa Ana Spectrum select Gloria McFang, a 6'6" dragon forward. With that, the Alaska Arctics are on the clock.
And Gloria McFang it is. Interesting.
I'd say it's an interesting selection. She is definitely more looking towards for the 3 points, which is something I kind of noticed with some of the picks that they've selected. A lot of, well, I wouldn't say, well, yeah, for most of the picks so far, they have at least known how to shoot the 3. So with Gloria McFain, it's no surprise to the relatability there.
Yeah, the Spectrums have had a history of having very good shooters from outside the arc. Definitely on if I remember their 2014 season, it was pretty much 3-pointers for days.
Oh yes, that
that
was
brought that brought them the championship rings.
Indeed.
yeah, that's what they're known for, and they're probably going back to the roots because a lot of the guys are getting up there in age, and they had a little bit of a shuffle when it comes to identity the past couple of years, but right now they're trying to get back to their old 2014 roots and see how they're going to go with that. Anyways, now
So
let's
we
over.
bring Alaska. Hopefully
Alaska
they will
is
not,
back at the table.
and hopefully they will not draft any furs. Good gravy, the amount of small forwards and swingers on that team now.
Right. They drafted Josh Severt, who is forward as well, in the first round. Definitely, I'm going to lean towards guard or at least a swing for a guard leaning swing for.
I would imagine they would have to go for shooting guard at this point, mainly because they will not have Ambrose Slade this coming season. He also retired. So they will need something to take care of the hole that he has left now.
Right.
I wouldn't. Oh,
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Amy Weiss is gonna be in their sights.
All right. Well, for me, I'm not really sure if it's as big of a need as you say with Ambrose Slade, because remember, Devin Kellendine is there, even though he's more point guard than shooting guard, but Cliff Matthews has shown more than enough times that he can play the shooting guard position very well. So I do think that if they decide to move Devin up to the starting position, which in my opinion, I think he should have been his entire time. I'm just saying. I wouldn't be too surprised if they decide to go. If they decide to go guard, I think that it would make a little bit of sense. So I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest.
Indeed.
All right. Well, let's see
I
what the deputy commissioner has to say.
Oh, at the same time.
Pardon the echo, but with the 43rd pick in the FBA draft, the Alaska Arctic select Amy Wise, a wolf dog from St. Mary's Canine University. With that, the Edmonton Totems are on the clock.
You know what they say?
I think Will Steinberg owes me another.
That and stereo is better than mono.
Indeed. Anyway, it went exactly as I expected it would.
Right. And that takes the last guard-leaning the swing fur. That's the word I'm looking for.
It's all right. We all have our slips.
I mean, we're getting close to the end anyway, so expect us to be a little woozy, just a little bit. We haven't been drinking or anything, just just a little woozy.
Well, I certainly haven't. Anyway.
Well, anyways, we're
gonna
go get
Edmonton.
into. Yep. So
yeah, now here's an interesting situation. Now we've got draftees who are thinking, okay, am I going to get picked up or am I going to be a walk-on? Edmonton, let's take a look at their roster and see what they've got and what they need.
Well, I know one thing that they don't need. They do not need another shooting guard in their lives right now, considering the recent trade that they were involved in, acquiring Francois Martineau. So if they decide to go for that, you're prepared to flip tables. Just so you're aware, just prepare to flip.
Well, they will need big fur depth, I believe. They will need more big fur depth, considering that they need someone to cover. I believe it is Crosby's spot. Now that he is racing more, they will likely go more forwardly in that case. So I expect it will likely be either Koichi Ishikawa or Yu Huali in this case. So we will see what happens. But those are my two likely picks here.
I would have to tend to agree with you on those two players there. They could try to go for someone who's center leaning, like Andres Liso.
I would say, if anything, they would probably. I would say they might as well go pure. They have definitely had a lot of big furs in their depth in the past, and even though it worked out pretty well for them last year, they haven't made it into the playoffs. I still think that it might be good to just go for somebody who is more pure, and I do believe that Sicarius, I'm hoping I'm saying that right, is what we're gonna go with here.
All right. It looks like a decision has been made.
With the 44th pick in the FBA draft, the Edmonton Totems have selected Koichi Ishikawa, a koi fish from Florida Anthropodian and Molluscan Big Fur. With that, the Biloxi Voodoo are on the clock once again.
Try and say that name 5 times fast.
Koichi Ishikawa, Koichi Ishikawa, Koichi Ishikawa, Koichi Ishikawa, Koichi Ishikawa.
Stop being a show-off.
Could.
Stop trying to be a show-off, okay? And you're too sick for that. Stop it.
Excuse.
I can't see you guys.
Please don't sneeze in my way.
I apologize for that.
I can't see you guys in the studio, but I just imagine a slap fight going on right now.
Oh my gosh.
That is the last thing that Marcus needs at this moment, I think.
Biloxi Voodoo, here we go. So earlier in the draft, they did have an earlier decision of deciding to go for Henrik Fischner with the not Henrik Fisher.
Henrik Fisher.
Yeah, Henrik Fisher. In with the 28th pick, who do you think they're going to go this time?
All right, let's take a look-see. We've got positions that have opened up. I'm gonna look toward one of those another one of those guards going off the board.
Indeed, guards seem like the most logical one to go with.
Of course, we've got Frank Wang still on the cusp and waiting to be picked up. Erica Smith is another guard, pure guard. Annalise Rogers, another pure guard.
And then also Jeremy Goodnight until Carvalho Rocha. I am fairly certain that Portuguese names are the ones I have the most trouble with. So I am not even going to attempt to correct myself there. But yes, I feel like which sort of guard do you think they will lean towards, though? Because I think that is also fairly important.
I probably would have to say they might lean more towards a point guard in there. I think the only one that I can really think of that could really lean towards that, I believe, is Annalise Rogers. I think she's like a pure point guard right there. She has the body for it. She's very short, yes, but I can see her doing a very well, coming in with limited minutes and seeing we can go from there. So I think that it could be a good idea there because they've already got enough in shooting guard already with Scott Parsons, and even though Wallace Butler is in free agency, I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back to Biloxi, and they're pretty set there.
Yeah. Well, I see the deputy commissioner coming, so we'll find out soon.
Before I announce who will be picked by the Biloxi Voodoo, I do have a trade to announce regarding the next pick. The 46th pick belonging to Queens has been traded to Edmonton for Bumhauer. With this trade, Edmonton will be on the clock after the Biloxi's pick.
Well, at least we got trade madness on the other end of the round time.
Is it really madness?
It is really? Not. You are right about that.
Yep. All right.
All right, I see the deputy commissioner rushing back out, so...
With the 45th pick in the FBA Draft, the Biloxi Voodoo have selected Mustafa Sokolovic, a yellow-throated marten from the Avian University of Hamilton. With this, the Edmonton Totems are back on the clock.
Well,
forward depth. Very interesting.
Yep. As we're pretty much seeing the depth commish getting a little bit of exercise here, coming in and back really quickly.
Hey, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have you guys get the deputy commissioner into the studio after the draft is complete.
Yeah, that would be nice to see him come in and try to have some discussions on how he feels with some of these picks.
That would be quite good.
But anyway, we should go ahead and get into the next pick, which is going to be the Edmonton Totems, not the Queen's Pride, with the latest trade that happened. So what do you guys think is going to happen here with Edmonton now that they're back on the clock?
Well, it's interesting they give away a center-leaning big fur. My feeling is they may go for another big fur at this juncture now that they've traded one away. And I have the feeling they may lean for, or they may also go for a pure center this time as well. That is also in the cards.
Yeah, in all honesty, they kind of need as much space as they can get, even though they can't really do much this late in the game when it comes to trades. But I wouldn't be surprised if they do decide to go for a big fur here, considering that it is very, very fickle on the big fur side, while in the guard side, it's pretty hefty. It's pretty hefty right now.
Right. With that, I will have to leave you guys. I appreciate you having me on the draft show, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your draft night. This is Andy Peltz signing out.
All right.
All
We'll
right.
see you, Andy.
Thank you.
I
Nice guy.
need to see him for a coffee eventually.
So, with the fact that with the big thinking that we're going to be leaning towards big fur, there really isn't a lot to go with.
There is not
when it comes to that.
Yeah,
So
especially center leaning in this case.
right now, the only two, well, there's quite a few. Who do you think will be selected out of the bunch?
I would say possibly Pierre Caro would be my bet. He seems like he would gel with the team chemistry the best of all of them, and Elkholm is perhaps a little too rowdy for what I have heard, and I would put my money on Caro.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with you there. He isn't really going to be something you would rely on offensively, but defensively, he is definitely stacked in that regard. And plus, he's a big guy, 7'1". You can't get really any better than that. So I will not be surprised if they do decide to go for Pierre Caro.
Excuse me, I almost felt another sneeze coming.
Oh, goodness.
Sorry about that, but I do legitimately feel a little bit better now. So
that's good. That's good. That's good to hear.
And I'm feeling better now, just in time to see the deputy commissioner come.
With their recently acquired pick, the Edmonton Totems select Pierre Caro, a Fossa center. With that, the Arizona Whips are on the clock.
Hey, another one correct.
I think this is the point at which Veronica would play one of her show tunes. I do not quite know the tune, but the words, but it goes something like. Anyway.
Yep. So Arizona with the 47th pick. Whew. Of course, Arizona going through a lot of changes. I will emphasize that a lot of changes, especially in the starting position role. And I'm actually a lot more confident in them this year, considering the pieces that they've gotten from that major trade that happened last night. But as for any kind of depth, I probably wouldn't be surprised if they decide to go guard.
Yeah, I would have to. I think they will have to try to go for the two front court people that are left in this draft, and they can go either way with this. I imagine that whichever form they bring into the team, and then with Morgan McCarthy, because I think it is a safe bet to assume he will come back. They still need good backup for him, especially since I believe it's Hassan Kamal. Is he still there, or?
Yeah, Hassan Kamal still has 2 years left on his contract.
Yes. Yeah, I imagine they will want something to cover for him because he has been extremely injury. And that is my feeling is they will go for some kind of big first. Yeah, and they also do not have very many pure point guards left, to be quite honest.
Yeah, you are also correct on that. In considering that information, who do you think they would be leaning towards with that information? I think they could go for Sicarius at home, honestly, if that proves to
Perhaps,
be the case.
perhaps. They may also go. They may also want a little more versatility to that. So I would say either Andres Liso or Yuhu Ali. So, so there is that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and who would you say would be? Oh, did I ask you about the guard already?
I've already gave out my answer. They could go
Hmm.
for Sicarius at home, but if they decide to go for what I think they could possibly happen, um, just to get as much depth as they can at the guard position, possibly Erica Smith.
Hmm.
Like I said,
Going
we
for
don't really
shooting
know.
guard?
Yeah, maybe just
Uh,
because, just in case they want to just throw it in there, just like, hey, we need more depth at
If
any kind of guard position. Erica Smith,
if
there you go.
if they do that, that would not surprise because they do need shooting guard depth. Their shooting guards were one of their weakest positions in previous, and they never truly figured out how to do that. So if they do not go big for that would be a logical place to look.
Yep, and plus, I do like to bring up the fact that they did bring in Logan Green within that trade, which could actually help them out for the better because he has done pretty decently with his time that he had,
Mm.
and I wouldn't be really surprised if he wins that shooting guard position in the end of it. And speaking of, here comes the commissioner with the next pick.
With the 47th pick in the 2017 FBA Draft, the Arizona Whips select Sicarius Elcom, the Transvaal Lions center, standing at 7'2". With that, the last team, Williamsburg Minutemen, are on the clock.
Oh my
You
goodness!
you were correct.
Whew.
You were
Yep.
correct.
Well, with that in mind, we are now getting into the so-called irrelevant pick, very last pick, number 48. This will be for Williamsburg.
Who has
Who you got
yeah?
and why?
Well, for me, um, they could go anywhere with this. They recently cleaned house of some of their more expensive contracts, which is indeed a good thing because now they have room to maneuver. And
Yeah.
and I do not know where exactly they would go. I will just say the entire board is open at this point. Um, so I will just sit back and not put my money on anything.
Well, okay. I'm just gonna probably just say the best available that we have right now, and that will be probably the sole person who is an on the cuff player that has not been called up yet, and that will be Frank Wong. I think that might be the best choice that they have. Like I said, this is the quote unquote irrelevant pick. It'd be sucked. It will suck to be called the Mr. Irrelevant, but it's better to be called a Mr. Irrelevant pick than a non-pick, than just someone who's a walk-on. So it's going to be interesting to see what they go here, but it's going to be interesting. And here we are seeing the commissioner giving the final pick for the irrelevant.
With the final pick in the 2017 FBA Draft, the Williamsburg Minutemen select, and God help me, Jamba Kabaya, an Okapi from the University Southern California. With that selection, that is the final pick of the second round. With that being the case, players may now begin to accept offered contracts as the free agency has officially begun. I will give our commentators time to give their closing thoughts on the draft, and I will come back in 5 or so minutes to provide updates on any players that have accepted contracts. Thank you.
Whew. Okay.
Well, I would say this was a very predictable.
Well, not a lot of things have been. Well, it's been a pretty solid draft, I would say. Quick question: who do you think is a player that haven't been drafted here that you thought that should have been drafted?
Honestly, I would say Frank Wong. The poor guy is on the cusp, and he just did not get picked up by anybody. That is veritable shame, to be honest.
Yeah.
I also think that it is a shame that Annalise Rogers also was picked as well. So we will. So, well, who do you think should have picked up this draft?
Well, honestly, I feel like that considering how honestly, the center position is kind of weak overall. Well, I wouldn't say weak overall, but in the FBA draft, if you're looking for a backup center, there really aren't a lot of big firms out there that are known for that. And if you do want to go for a starting, you got to go way up there in the expensive round. So I'm kind of a little bit surprised that Zacharias Ekholm wasn't selected. Of course, granted, he is a non-top 24 pick.
He was selected, actually.
But he was? Oh, my bad.
Yes, he was selected by the Arizona. Do I need to bring
Okay,
you your coffee?
my apologies. My apologies. It seems like the board up here on my screen wasn't as updated. My apologies. But with that in mind, I would probably have to say Andres Liso. I think I'm saying that right, yeah?
Yes, I think
Something like
you
that.
are. But I know Miss would murder us for mispronouncing. Come to think of it, he's probably going to not be very happy with me for mispronouncing his name now.
I mean, it happens. Like, people might need to just like understand that we are furry beings. We're not perfect. We're gonna have a couple of hiccups here and there. It's something that happens. But
excuse me, I take offense to the double hiccups comments.
Well, hey,
That's it.
I'm just okay. Please use vampire sneeze. That's the thing. Vampire sneeze. I mean, it's better than calling it the dab sneeze.
What?
Yeah, just use your arm, my man. Use your arm. Use your arm.
So, who do you think best move of this draft round, worst move of this draft round?
As in for the second round?
Yes.
Or just overall? Okay. Well, I think the best move overall in the second round. Honestly, I probably would have to go with the. I would have to go with Pittsburgh going with Carlos Reyes. He was the last guy that was selected that was officially in the top 24. And getting him in a pick 39, he could possibly be a big steal there. It's a shame that he was dropped this low, but I think that could be the best choice in this decision. Now, for the worst in this draft, I'm not entirely really sure, considering that once again, this is the second round.
Well, if you're stumped, I can chime in with.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Plymouth Taproots drafting Jacobus Van Oershoff. I do not know what Plymouth is thinking of late. They absolutely do not need that small forward depth. They absolutely do not. So for me, that is the worst pick of the second round of the draft. For me, the best pick of the second round probably will go to Bengal Gary Elsinore. He may only wind up being depth for Randy Meckenbach, but I imagine that as one of the few remaining top 24 players at that time, he really grabbed a steal.
Okay. Okay, cool. All right, I kind of want to like steer away from a little bit from the draft overall. Yes. It's congratulations to all the players again for being selected. You guys are chosen because a lot of the GMs do believe in their players. They don't just pick them just because they do see potential in you, and just make the best time that you have for it. But I kind of do want to lead into more of the free agency side. Out of all this drafting craziness, which player do you think is affected most by this upcoming draft, from this draft?
Currently in free agent.
Yeah, in current free agency.
But personally, I would say Derek Kim. The pick for Mary Catherine O'Hara may have been good for depth, but it may absolutely have solidified Derek Kim's departure from Winnipeg. Will Steinberg very strongly felt he was likely to depart anyway, but I do not feel quite so convinced that is the case. Winnipeg did play him as a starter pretty much from the get, so you would think he would hold a little loyalty to the team for that reason. But after Mary Catherine O'Hara, I don't know. He may be the most likely to jump ship.
Yeah. Well, I think probably one of the biggest the biggest free agent player right now that I'll probably have to say that has probably had the biggest impact that might get affected by the draft overall. I probably will have to say another decision. I do think that that the Big Deer might have to think of the decisions of Dakota has made, because even though yes, they did bring in his best buddy Benjamin Dury, his antler buddy, I still think that Dylan Redfield might have to consider the fact that Jalen Rose was selected with the 7th pick. That could spark a little bit of a fire, considering the fact that it's still a top 10 pick. But we'll see how this lands. I might assume that the Deer has a little bit of mixed feelings into this.
Yeah, Dylan Redfield would have been my guess. Would have been my next pick for that. Mostly because I do think that too. You also have to remember that he and the Dakota Bikers have had a very rocky relationship over the years. There have been times where Dylan Redfield has done his usual thing, and Dakota has not taken it entirely well. So that could also be a factor.
Yeah. Well, anyways, it looks like that the commissioner is ready to make some of the big free agency announcements. That's pretty much a really, really big thing that everybody's probably really excited for. So we're going to give the floor to him and make these big announcements.
Thank you, everyone who has been quickly texting in regarding their decisions. I'm glad I can have some news, some good, some bad. We'll start off with Jerome Swimmer. accepts a 1-year, $1 million contract with the Huntsville Mares. Micah Davenport accepts a 4-year, $50 million deal with the Queen's Pride. Mary Wooten accepts a 1-year deal, $1.5 million with the Winnipeg Voyagers. Derek Kim accepts a 3-year, $35 million deal with the Biloxi Voodoo. Matthew Silvius accepts a 2-year deal, $20 million with the Dakota Bikers. Mark Grana Jr. accepts a 2-year, $4 million deal with the Alaska Arctics. And Marcella Oliveira accepts a 3-year, $10 million deal with the Williamsburg Minutemen. Those 7 free agents are the only ones who have contacted us thus far. We look forward to hearing from all the rest of the free agents this offseason. Once again, my closing remarks, I'd like to thank everyone who was able to attend tonight. Today, another 24 players take one more step towards their dream, though that should not discourage those who have gone unselected tonight. I hope each and every one of you continue to fight for your dream, whether in the D-League as a walk-on, or maybe even going back to the European League. I wish you all the best of luck, and I hope to see you on the court sometime soon. Thank you all.
Okay, cool.
Well, I was right about Derek Kim, it looks like.
Yeah. Honestly,
the entire Trumpeter's office was right, for that matter of fact.
Well, those are definitely a couple of pretty big ones that we have heard. Of course, right now the biggest change is Derek Kim going into Biloxi Voodoo. That's definitely going to be a solidified for the point guard position for the future. And of course, it does bring some questions of whether or not it could bring Sterling Basting to the team, because we already know that those guys are pretty close friends. And if they do want to decide to go team up and, do some shocking things with Biloxi, I wouldn't be surprised. It could be fun to see.
Oh, honestly, I think that would be a very fun thing to witness, especially in the Southern Conference, because do not forget, if benching leaves the Howlers to go to the Voodoo, do not forget who another team conference.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that would be. Well, anyway, it seems I would be very interested to see how the conference turns out with that in mind.
All right. Well, I think that might be enough. That might be it for us here in the 2017 FBA Draft. Once again, thank you everybody for getting a chance to participate and actually see all the selections. And it has been very, very satisfying to see. And we hope to see you guys later on in the next time we see you. Maybe hopefully in a sports den. Who knows?
We will see. Anyway, I have been... I blanked on my own name. How is that possible?
Are you having some short-term memory loss? Is that a part of your subscription or your medication?
Yes, I suppose so.
Well,
anyway, I have been Rodney.
Yes, you've been Rodney
Yancey. And I've been Marcus Baylor.
And I've been Marcus Knight.
Marcus Knight.
No, I'm having a stroke now.
Okay,
I've been Ryan Eastman. I'm trying to outdo you over there, Rodney. I'm Ryan Eastman. Thank you all for tuning in.